Welcome to A.U.M. Ask Us Marketing. Our episode today is brought to you by the Financial Planning Association, otherwise known as the FPA. FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking for financial advisors like you. They've also got a fantastic FPA retreat coming up this spring in Chicago. So make sure you check that out. I went last year in Arizona and it was pretty great. It's a much intimate setting compared to other conferences I've been to, so you really get to know the other attendees, which I personally really enjoy. Okay, I'm your host, Kalli Fedusenko of Kalli Collective. We are a digital marketing agency focused on building relationships between financial advisors and their target audience using data to create websites, online content, and ads. We build relationships first and we grow numbers second. If that's an approach that resonates with you, then sign up to get our emails at the QR code above my head, or check us out at our website, kallicollective.com, by scanning the QR code below my head. Speaking of building relationships, not all conversations are created equal. Some open doors, build trust, and drive real results. Kyle from Coon will share how to turn everyday interactions into meaningful connections that lead to real opportunities. Whether you're networking, selling, or strengthening client relationships, knowing how to make your words matter is key. So join with me, Kyle Coon of KyleCoon.com. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, Callie, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I'm very excited to talk about conversations, to converse about conversing. So let me start out by saying, why do you believe conversations are one of the most valuable tools for success in business and in life?
Yeah, it's interesting because you know in your intro there you're
Yeah,
talking about relationships and
right.
you know well how do we start relationships? How do we have relationships? So relationships is actually it's the third part of this little five-step dance
Mm,
that exists in business and life. So every great relationship
yeah.
starts with conversations. Well, before you can have conversations, and the thing that drives conversations
Hmm.
is questions. So so this little five-step dance that we have is questions create conversations, which build relationships, and relationships is what opens up the doors to opportunities,
Yeah.
and then opportunities are what then allows us to drive action. So questions, conversations, relationships, opportunities, action.
Okay.
And so conversations, they are the foundation. Questions and conversations, those are the foundations for relationships. And
Mm,
we do business at what was it's I think, wasn't it like Stephen Covey or someone said, like,
yeah.
business moves at the speed of trust. Well,
Mm,
the way we build trust is by developing those relationships, having deeper, more meaningful conversations.
yeah. So something you just said about asking questions reminds me of one of our early guests on the show. And
Mhm.
they're like, God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. So, what kinds of questions should we be asking to build trust?
Great. It's a great question. So I think one of the big elements here
Hmm.
is what we all tend to do
Mm,
is we try to insert our content
hmm.
before gaining context. So we should
Mm,
ask questions that help us build a body of evidence,
okay.
so that we can then insert our content.
Mm,
So you know, what I mean, so like, here's the thing: like,
yeah.
trust is curiosity plus empathy.
Mm,
That's all trust is. So we ask strategically curious
yeah.
questions, because if we come to if we come to a conversation with curiosity,
Yeah.
it's hard to be wrong
Mm,
in that
yeah.
situation if you think
Right.
about it. Like how many times have you been in a situation where someone rolls into a conversation and they are so certain of themselves, like just so certain,
Oh, yeah.
that they have the answers. It doesn't make you less certain than them.
Right. Yes, I know exactly those types of people.
So, but if we come to a conversation with curiosity,
Yeah.
then that opens up the door, and if we stay curious for long enough, we reach this position of empathy. And
Mm,
and and empathy, you know, we all it really means is to care about what the people you care about. So,
mm,
in the I mean, your audience is financial
yeah.
planners, financial advisors, you know, care about what the people that you are advising
Mm,
care about.
mhm,
we
mhm.
get we get to that position
Yeah.
by asking curious questions and then zipping it
Mm,
and listening.
mhm, mhm. So walk me through those 5, steps again. The first one was questions, right?
Yep, it starts with asking curious questions,
Okay.
strategically curious questions. And what that does is that allows us to, questions create conversations.
Okay. So what was
Conversation yep so
so create
conversation
conversations?
so questions create conversations.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And then conversations build relationships.
Mm,
Relationships lead to opportunities.
okay.
Opportunities are what open the door to action. And then there's this small little piece at the very end,
Yeah.
where once we have been curious for long enough and we reach that position of empathy,
Mm,
we then have the courage to ask for the sale, or
mm,
to make a recommendation. So, like, you're in the marketing
right.
world. And all really marketing is marketing is a way for us to attract the
Mm,
people so that we can
mhm,
then sell,
mhm,
make sales, drive, marketing attracts the bees, sales, we pick out the bees that we want to work with, and then we
mhm,
make the sale. um, and you know in sales, what our goal is to say, because of the fact that you said XYZ, therefore I recommend ABC.
mm. Okay, that's actually a great transition because my question for you is going to be what's the best way to transition a great conversation into a business opportunity without it making it feel inauthentic now? Like,
Hmm.
oh, you were just asking me questions to sell something to me. That's like a really big turn off. So,
Yeah,
what do you recommend as a great way to transition that conversation with somebody?
yeah. So it goes back to that. Um, you know, what we need to do is, what we're trying to find out when we're having conversations with clients or potential clients, is this really misunderstood word in business, and that is motivation.
Mm,
So
okay.
we're really trying to find out what motivates people, and motivation, all it means is a reason to move.
Mm,
Um, and people only move for three reasons.
okay.
And every reason falls kind of into these three buckets, and that is, people move to become more comfortable.
Mm,
People, more of the time
mm,
will move to avoid discomfort.
mhm,
Every single person on planet Earth will move to do something that makes their heart sing.
mhm.
Something for them and only them.
Okay.
Uh, so so often, what happens is we only try to focus in on one of
Mm,
those three areas of motivation.
okay.
And so our questions have to revolve around finding out what those other two are.
Mm.
So we have to find out like what is the thing that makes you uncomfortable, that you're trying to run away from and avoid.
Mm.
In the
Okay.
financial world, is that you're uncomfortable being in debt? Is that
Mhm.
is that you're something else, in the comfort area, some people some of the time will move toward just building wealth.
Mhm.
But and then what is that third piece? What is that area that just makes the person's heart
Joy.
sing?
Yeah.
That just makes their heart sing.
Yeah.
um, and so once we kind of establish all of that,
Mhm.
and we can say back
Mhm.
to someone, okay, like, so what I'm hearing is you've said A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I,
Mhm.
and because of the fact that you said all of those things, well, here's what I'd recommend.
Mm.
I'd recommend
Mhm.
X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
Does that sound, does that sound like something you can move forward with?
Yeah.
What it does is it triggers this "show me that you know me" button. Like, so we have, because we have stayed curious for long enough, we've reached a position of empathy where we now care about what they care about. We
Mm.
understand what motivates them, and
Mhm.
now we're just being helpful.
Do you have any examples of questions that an advisor could ask to get to those three motivations?
Yeah, good. There's so there are some, you know there are some things, and a lot of it is just sitting back and asking, like, hey, like, help me understand, what it is why did help me understand why you reached out to me,
Mm.
um, as an advisor. Like, what made you think about uh, you know wanting to get with an advisor.
Yeah.
Why now? Like, or what has your experience been
Mm.
with financial advisors in the past? Like, what do you understand about the financial industry?
Mm.
Like, what is your understanding of of the markets? What do you understand about the options that are out there?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, those kinds of questions.
Yeah.
And we're just collecting a body of evidence. And we can also ask, what so we ask them about their past, like,
Mm.
okay, what have you done what have you done in the past? Why, what kind of employment have you had? Or, okay, now oh, like, we've now learned that you're self-employed. Oh, well, like,
Mm.
what was the driving force behind
Mm.
you wanting to be self-employed? Oh, like, what are the things that are driving you now?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we understand so we've understood now what things have happened in the past. We're kind of getting into what's lighting their fire now, and then we look into future.
Mm.
What are you running toward? What are the things that, like, where do you see yourself in this 1, 3, 5, 10 year
Mm.
time period?
Mhm.
Just like, and we can also ask about their personal life, their family life, because family can be a big motivator as well.
Yeah.
All those kinds of things. It's just, at the end of the day, you're trying to build a relationship.
Mhm.
Uh, you're building a relationship. That's what you're trying to do.
Right? So what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes people make in conversations, and how can we avoid them?
I think the number one biggest mistake that we all make, I mean, I do it. Every single one of us
Yeah.
in the human race has done it at least once or twice in our lives. It's we we don't actually stay curious. Uh,
Mm.
for let's just use this, for example. Callie,
Yeah.
where did you last go on your, where did you last go on your vacation?
Vacation. Oh, Great Britain.
Oh, Great Britain! I love Great Britain. I've been there numerous times. I actually I went there a couple of years ago. I raced in Swansea, Wales, and
Oh,
I didn't actually do I
yeah.
didn't have a great race, but I took fifth. It was a terrible race for me actually. Got my teeth kicked in. I don't know if I told you, but I raced triathlon. I've competed all over the world for
Well, I
Team
can tell
USA. I'm a
you.
two-time Paralympian. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be real
How
happy with a
how
fifth place.
how, well, here's the thing. How often does that happen where you say something and then I inserted all of
Mm,
all of my
your
I
experiences.
gave my answer to
Right,
your to the question. Can
right.
we try it again?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Callie, where did you last go on your vacation?
Great Britain.
Great. Oh, Great Britain. When was that?
I want to say it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So you're like 2023?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah,
was. Yeah, it definitely
yeah.
wasn't last year. So yeah, it had to
Okay.
have been 2023.
Okay, yeah. Like, why did you decide to go to the UK or GB?
Yeah. So my husband's sister is in the Air Force and she's stationed at the Air Force base over there.
Oh,
I also have some family that I learned about when I was 15. Uh,
oh,
so I went to go visit them because we didn't know they existed. And then we did. And then I found out I had all these cousins.
yeah. Wow.
um, I know. And my parents also lived in Scotland for 5 years.
Oh, no way. That's
Mhm.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
that's so cool. That's so cool. What time of year did you go?
Ooh, early spring.
Early spring. Okay. Like,
Yeah,
what
it
was
was still a bit chilly there.
a little chilly? A little
Yeah.
chilly. Yeah. So like around this time of year, like March, April, kind of May. Yeah. That.
Yeah, it was, I think early March. So yeah,
Okay.
right around
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah. Yeah. So this. I mean, yeah. This is a we'll go ahead and hit the pause button there. Kind of an awkward conversation. I threw you into on a live stream. To your 70,000 viewers or whatever you got here. 70,000 of your closest friends, and
Right.
the biggest mistake that we all make is we try to insert our content before
Mm,
we gain our context.
right,
um,
right.
so all I had to do in that conversation was ask you, prepare one or two questions,
Mm,
sit back, and then listen to your answers
mhm.
and engage with you.
Right, right.
So, and then, as if we were to, continue on down this road, and that conversation would get deeper, more
Right.
meaningful. We'd begin to trust each other more.
Mhm.
And when we get to that level of trust, because I have been curious for long enough to reach a position of empathy, I
Yeah.
could then have that, we could understand each other to a point where now,
Yeah.
um, I'm like, hey, because you've said, X, Y, Z, I'd recommend we do ABC.
Mhm. Yep. I can see
So,
how powerful that would be.
yep.
Um,
And so often we try to rush through these
yeah.
things. You
Yep.
have to slow the process down to
Mm.
speed the outcome up.
Mm. Ooh, I like that. That's a good quote. Say it again.
Yeah, no, it's we have to slow the process down to speed the outcome up. So,
Mm.
and this was for those of you that can't see it on the live stream. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a two-time Paralympian in the sport of triathlon, and this was something that I learned that became very evident to me
Mm.
in competing in triathlon,
Mhm.
is that um, when you're transitioning from swim to bike or bike to run, it's called transition.
Mm.
Uh, Funnily enough, and what so often happens is people,
Yeah.
and that the time you spend in transition counts on
Mm.
the clock. It counts
Mhm.
towards your total time, and transition can make or break a race,
Mm,
especially when you're competing at the highest level. And
right.
so what winds up happening so often is athletes rush. They
Mm,
rush through transition.
hmm.
And what I found was that, if I slowed the process down a little bit,
Yeah.
if I was smooth and
Mm,
fluid, if I knew exactly where where each piece of gear was, if I
mm,
knew and then,
hmm.
all of a sudden I was smooth,
Yeah.
smooth and fluid through transition. And that actually translated to speed.
Mm,
And the same thing can happen in our conversations.
right.
And if we want to land those, if we want to land those big fish, if we want to, attract the right clients, we have to be willing to get in the weeds a little bit,
Yeah.
stay in the weeds a little bit longer, build that trust, stay curious for long enough
Right.
to reach that position of empathy.
Yeah.
And then and only then do we have the courage to make that ask.
Hmm. Kyle, you are hopefully I get this right, in exactly what to say certified?
Yep.
Is
Yep.
that what
Yep.
it's called?
Exactly. Yep. I'm an exactly what to say certified guide. So
Okay.
what that means is I'm a licensed partner to with a gentleman named Phil M. Jones.
Mm.
He wrote this tiny little book. Takes about 72 minutes to read cover to cover.
Oh, okay.
The book is called Exactly What to Say. You can get it on
Mm.
Amazon or wherever
Yeah.
books are sold. And it's a sales book for non-professional for
Mm.
non-salespeople essentially,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's these 23 sequences of what Phil calls magic words,
Mm.
and they're little phrases that we can use to help drive conversations
Mhm.
forward.
Mhm.
What so often what happens is when you have a small little book that takes just
Mhm.
over an hour to read, a lot of stuff gets left out. And so what Phil did was he built this network of licensed partners, of certified guides, to bring in and help explain the principles of
Mm.
exactly what to say. And
Okay.
so in exactly what to say, we always and this could be a whole nother this could be a whole nother episode for you, but we always say that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it. So
Well,
go into every
mhm.
conversation with a little bit of thoughtful thought, a little bit of preparation ahead of time.
Okay.
um, Curiosity is the fuel for great
Mhm.
conversation.
Mhm.
So today we talked a lot about curiosity,
Yeah.
empathy, courage, and so question, and that falls into that bucket of questions create conversations, which build relationships, which open up opportunities, which leads to action. Uh,
Mm.
we have this next cornerstone. So we got the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment you're saying it.
Yeah.
Curiosity is the fuel for great conversation. The next our next little pillar or cornerstone is that um, the person asking the questions
Mhm.
is in control of every conversation.
Mm. Hmm.
And then finally,
Mhm.
people do things for their reasons, not yours.
Yeah. Very true.
And so as an exactly what to say certified guide, what I do is I can come into companies and you know help them with their communication, build these cornerstones, teach the magic words and phrases
Mm.
from exactly what to say, and really we dig into the principles, and we have
Yeah.
very tailored programming for that. I also can give keynote presentations at
Yeah.
conferences and such.
Yeah.
So my ears perked up when you were mentioning about the spring conference. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd love to get involved with that at some point. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Uh, so those types of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you'd like to, dig a little deeper into, exactly what to
Mm-hmm.
say, please feel free to drop me a line. You can email me at kyle@kylecoon.com, and I'd be happy to, send you some resources, and partner up and see what we can do to help, everyone else, everyone
Yeah.
out there make more of your conversations count instead of just counting up the number of conversations you're having.
Mm-hmm. So two questions from all that. Well,
Sure.
actually, you kind of answered one of them. One of them was going to be, do you offer that as a service, guiding people through
Yep.
exactly what to say? Okay.
Yep. I
For
sure
our
do.
audience, if you scan the QR code above me, that will take you to Kyle's website.
Yep.
And then my second question for you is going to be, what prompted you to, and this will probably have to be our last question because I'm running out of time, but
Yeah.
what prompted you to become a guide of exactly what to say?
We might have to dig into that in another episode, but the very short answer is, I struggled a lot early in my career. So for those of your audience that might not be aware,
Yeah.
I'm totally blind, and I struggled early on in my career finding employment, and
Mm-hmm.
really it was because I didn't know how to sell. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to sell. I was a very selfish, arrogant prick, to be quite honest. and
You're
um, and,
I
event-
imagine.
and eventually I came across exactly what to say,
Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, this is just another sales
Mm-hmm.
thing, blah blah blah. But Phil's a funny guy. He's British, so everything he said sounded funny, and it sounded simple.
Yeah.
Finally I was just like, well, I got nothing else to lose. Let me try a few of these, and I actually tried a magic phrase called open-minded,
Mm.
and so I sent a note to a professional triathlete that I was
Yeah.
trying to recruit as a guide for me
Mm.
for training and
Mhm.
racing.
Mhm.
And I said, hey man, how open-minded would you be to, maybe getting out for a bike ride sometime? And I
Mm.
had hit this guy up numerous times. I had tried reaching out to other
Yeah.
professional triathletes, and crickets, crickets, crickets. And all of a sudden, he responded.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
just,
the best when you're like, you try something and it pays off and you're like,
yep,
okay.
yep. And so I just started digging into Phil's work more and more and more.
Mm.
Eventually, I launched a podcast back in 2023. Ran that for about a year or so, and I got big enough to where I
Yeah.
invited Phil
Mm.
to come onto the podcast. We had a great chat, and then a couple of months later, we connected again, and he said, "Would you like to become part of the certified guide community?"
Mm.
He's like, "I'm handpicking people, and our conversation was so good that I want to invite you into the guide community."
That's
And
awesome.
I said, "Where do I sign?"
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I've seen that it works, so sign
Exactly.
me
I
up.
applied. I applied it. And those. And everything. And everything in exactly what to say. I started applying it not just in my sporting life, but also in business negotiations, in
Mm.
negotiating with sponsors, in my personal conversations
Yeah.
with family members, with friends, and
Mm.
all kinds of things. And it permeated every aspect of my life,
Mm.
because we're all having conversations
Mhm.
all day, every day, and
Yeah.
it's the foundation and bedrock of humanity.
Yeah.
So it was such an important thing for me, and I was like, I believe in it. If we know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count, we can indeed change the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. What a great note to end on.
Yes, indeed.
So thank you so much for joining us, Kyle. And again, for the audience, kylecoon.com is the website. If you're listening on the podcast, you can go there. If you're watching live, you can scan the QR code. And join us next week. I don't have an image for this one. That's the wrong one. Join us next week as we're going to break away a little bit from host and guest, and I'll be going over some website vocabulary so you know what things mean. Like, what is a host? What is a server? What is a domain? So we'll dig into that and we'll explore what each of those things mean next week at Monday, 12 Central. So I'll see you then. Have a